The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, sorry for the delayed start. Welcome everybody. Today is Monday, 19th of November, 2018. Myself and John are here, and we've got a few attendees, so that's good. Now I know we've got a couple of questions today. Some covering some old ground, some covering new ground. But as always, if anyone's got any questions, queries, ideas, suggestions, please feel free to raise your hand or type it in the questions box, and we'll get the microphones opened, and we'll cover the content accordingly. While waiting for the questions to come in, updates. So we've got an update. I haven't actually put it on the website yet, but an update to the Chilkat wrapper was released earlier today. So 1.11, version 1.11 is out. So if you want to download and take a look at that, the new things in this release, we'll quickly cover a couple of them before diving into some of the other content. Is, as well as the Google Calendar, you can now talk to the Google task list. So I'll show you some of these in a second. But yes, basically, task lists, task items, and task lists. If anyone's unsure what they are, then basically, let's just bring the Google Calendar into place. And of course, this could be on your mobile device and so on and so forth. This is the calendar. These are your regular events. So an event, save that as your calendar. This is your task list, which you can see at the top of each day, or if you open up your task list, this is the actual tasks in here. Let's quickly show you that in action. It's part of our task class, so it makes it nice and easy for you. And you will do something like, you'd have your particular service account file and your keys and so on, which we've covered in past webinars. If anyone's unsure of any of this, any new users and thinking, what are we going on about? Again, raise your hand. We can cover them. We've got a bit to get through today, but we can cover all these. But this is making the assumption that you've already got the Chilkat and Chilkat template and the product, and you actually want to talk to more of Google, not just the calendar. So you would have your connection. So now we've got a new method called connect_tasks. That will get you a connection, and then it's a very simple case of basically bringing them down into local queues. There's all the type structures set up for you, so it's nice and simple. But we can see here we've got let's bring this over here, and our task list, our Google, over there. So we could open that. Sorry, just let me pull that out of the way as well. So we could get a connection and maybe bring that down. Let's just change that so we can see its ID within Google, its e-tag, which is ultimately its version, if you will, its version ID. And we'll put attend Noyantis meeting. So let's save that. That's come back. The e-tag will have changed, and you can see that Google's now just gone and updated, and that's that. So, and of course we can go off and insert. Ignore these forms. Obviously you'd have them in your apps and making them all look cosmetically nice and so on and so forth. Hopefully use some of our CodeJot wrappers while you're at it, of course. But basically this is just a rough and ready example. So we can say meeting 2 blah blah blah, for example. We'll save that, and you can see Google's just updated on the side. So meeting 2. So that's you talking to the task list, and you can of course insert, change, delete as you would expect to be able to do. As well as, and obviously take it, everyone knows that you can talk to Google calendar by the same method. I'm not sure it was in the last build. Might have been, might not. But of course, you would be talking to Google and bringing down lots of data. So now what you can do is you can basically use previous sync tokens to fine tune exactly what's coming down. So you only bring a very small set of details down and so on. The same for the Google Calendar's got that. The Google Task also has this, so it works on the due date of a task. So you can say, give me all the tasks that are due for today only. So you might have your task list set up for the next weeks, months, but if you're only in your calendar wanting the task for today, then, or maybe a to-do list, then you could query Google and just bring down just today's. So for example, get a connection. We've only actually got the one in there, so but just bringing them down the 19th, and you will only get. It looks a bit empty. Not quite sure why we didn't get the full body there, but yes, basically you can bring down just a subset. Okay, as well as that in this release, and like I say, this is available for download now. As well as that in the release, you've got, and we have covered them in the previous ones, got some changes to the socket class. So you can receive binary data and binary data asynchronous. You can receive binary data to n number of characters. So what hypothetically, well actually not hypothetically, one of the solutions I do, we have to transfer large data from China actually over to the US, but that's kind of irrelevant. Where from site A to site B. So what it does is it makes use of the string builder object, the JSON object. Actually, it prepares the data in JSON. It then emits it out to a string builder object. We open up a socket to the destination, and then we use the string builder's length command to get the length of the entire string builder content. Now remember, this string builder, it can be binary data, it can be encoded, could be Unicode, could be UTF-8, could be ASCII, could be anything you like. So you would get the length of it and then do a send binary data n. Well, send a count. So you could send the count across to the after the connection has been opened to say you expected to receive 4,000 bytes, for example. Send the count, then send binary data n. So you know send binary data. On the other side, it will receive binary data n, so it knows to receive 4,000 bytes. As soon as it's got that, it will come out, and you can then go and process the data accordingly. So I basically take it out of the receive binary data into a string builder and manipulate it from there. Maybe we should at one of these days actually go through some of these examples of the socket class, because it really is powerful and fast. It's probably some of the fastest communications I've seen in action. And then we've got, as promised, the updates to the QuickBooks class and the Zero class. These are both task classes. Obviously the binary data, the socket one, is a base class, and the Google stuff is a task class. So we now have QuickBooks credit memos, which are basically purchase accounts, purchase ledger if you're English, accounts payable if you're for US and more international. So they are the credit notes, if you will, from a purchasing point of view. From a sales point of view, and vendor credits for a purchasing point of view. Got currencies, vendors, which are suppliers, and tax rates. So that's what QuickBooks call them. Similar to that, you've got the Zero equivalent. So you've got your contacts, you've got credit notes, currencies, invoices, tax rates, and contacts. So all of that is in this class, in this build, with a few other little tweaks beneath the surface as well. So lots going on, lots more base classes coming your way in the next build. Hopefully get another build out next week with a lot more of the actual base classes wrapped. So SFTP, I think that's already done. SSH, zip, lots of content. So yeah, so that's what's in progress. And very quickly, the other one, this is not quite released, but I did want to show it. I wanted to show it last week. The report control to do with conflicts if you are using the track bar control. So let's just remove all the blocks. And we will throw this open. We'll cover the other help questions, which we've now got some questions come in. But what I also want to discuss is we've been doing this for a while. So it's just a couple of ideas on this detecting of the clashes. So basically, this is a report control in track bar view. So here's our report control rows and a couple of columns. I'm going to ask it to add a block, say starting at 2 for a length of 10. We'll colour it orange, that's fine. And we'll have one starting at maybe 15 for 3. So now we've got our blocks. We can move them around, of course, and that's showing you internally it will create and store you a queue of the current blocks. So you can see them and interrogate this at any time you like. But if you were to basically through your code, because you couldn't, what you can't do is then basically get them to clash or conflict each other, if you will, because they can only go up. So basically you can see one is 2 to 10 and one is 12 to 17. So there is no gap between them. If we was to, through our code, go and add one, so let's say we're going to add one at number 4 for length of 5, that's going to cause a clash because we know that starts at 2 for 10 character for a length of 10. So that's going to cause a clash. So what you've got the strategy to say allow the clashes, don't allow the clashes, allow the clashes but display a warning message, or allow the clashes but automatically start adding child rows to highlight the clashes. And that's what I've got this set to, which is the latest enhancement which we've been talking about. So I'll add that. So now we can see it's automatically added it as a child from your master row, if you will, which is happen to be rec002, whatever ID you give it. But now it's give it there. So now we can see that we've got a clash. And it's identified in our clash queue to say, right, that block or row, and it still thinks it's still married to its original row, of course. Technically it's not. If I go on to, we can see that row is rec002. If I go on to this one, it's rec002, but then it puts basically a clash ID on the end of it. So from a technical point of view, I'm keeping a clash. So if I was to say, okay, let's add one at 2 for 3, that's going to cause we could actually have that. Bad example. So onto there 2 and 3, and let's delete that one. So basically now we can see that we've got a couple of clashes. So, and they are reported accordingly here. So that is coming up in the next build. It's more or less there. The only thing I want to do is if I pull that up to there, I want that row to automatically disappear because there is no clash anymore. And I don't want them to be able to drag into a clash because you're not supposed to be able to do that in the first place. So that's the idea, the approach that we'll be taking. Did want to get it out before today webinar, but not been able to. But that will be in the next build, and it's not too far off now. Okay, so that's the updates. Any questions on those, or shall we open up to our? We've got a couple of questions, one from Frank and one from Steve. So let's open up Frank's microphone. Hi, Frank, are you there?
Yes, Andy. How are you?
Yes, fine, thank you. Yourself?
Good. Now, just a quick history. I started using your stuff 4 years ago, and I don't know why I stopped. I guess I had some registration issues. Anyway, I told you in the email.
I remember it was gym management, was it?
Yes.
Personal
training. Exactly.
Yeah. Do remember.
And I mean, it looked great. It just, again, I'm an idiot. I don't remember why. But anyway, I moved on from it, and then actually what happened in the last few weeks, I I saw Andy and John both use your stuff in their programs, and they're much larger than I. So I just went, well, it's time to really jump back in. But so I have some real quick questions here. Nothing really operational. Well, one, but we'll get to it.
Okay.
So anyway, number one, my licenses are all for 15.3.1.
That's okay.
Does that affect any of the features of the later versions, or do I need new licenses?
I would say take a look and try and accomplish what it is you want to try and accomplish using the 15.3.1. They are an older version, granted, but I still don't think you'd have too much of a problem. I mean, we'll knock some examples together around in a minute, and I'll make sure I'm using 15.3.1. So we know that they work with your particular versions. We now, if you did have registration issues in the past, the earlier versions. Oh, what Clarion are you using? What version?
Oh, well, that's another thing. I'm converting my programs from C6 to C10.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'm all the new stuff's going to be in either C10 or 11.
That's fine. That's good. Well, basically, since 9.1, you can use RegFreeCOM, which basically means that there is no actual registration of thing.
So right, I saw that. I have a little demo app that I've been playing with, and it worked great. So I was all excited about that.
Yeah. Sorry, someone's just making me a cuppa, and I didn't want to turn it down.
Yeah, I just didn't. I just don't want to lose features, or like this. Even though I don't have the Chilkat, but you're updating it all the time, and I don't want to be stuck in.
No, the CodeJot license and the plan from Noyantis are completely separate things. So your maintenance plan from Noyantis is if you've got 12 months and it expires in October, then anything after October you don't get until you put another plan in place, so to speak.
Right.
The CodeJot license is you buy a license. Actually, this is very similar. You get a CodeJot license for their controls. You get a plan. And while that plan's active, then you can download the latest up to that particular date and so on. And then after that, you can't get any more. So they are very similar from that point of view. Right. So basically, I don't know what the latest version, what you was eligible to. Maybe you could check the CodeJot history. Just because you didn't download the latest, it might be, for example, say your plan expired October 2015. Now you purchased it October 2014, and 15.3.1 might have been the latest. In that year, they might have released a couple more versions, but you didn't download them for whatever reason. You should still be eligible to those particular versions and so on.
Okay.
So do some checking. I've got the installers for all of them, loads of them. So you can get to the actual things. One interesting fact with CodeJot is now they might change this going forward, but that license code actually will work on future versions. So your license code for 15.3.1 you will actually work straight up to this 18.6, which is the latest. That's not to say you're entitled to use it. That you'd have to check their T's and C's on that to be fair. But it would actually work if you were to try that. That's a little tip.
As a matter of fact, I have a spin-off of that because I searched and I only have 6 license files and 6 OCXs. I guess I never downloaded the other 5 or whatever. I mean, I never used Report and Property Grid and a couple of the others. I just used the 6 that I basically played around with. And I did go on Kojak. I really didn't see a place for me to log in to check for anything. I'll go back in today and try to find something. And if I get stuck, I'll shoot you out an email or something.
Yeah, but I know.
But I mean, if it would be great if I could download the other 5. Again, I don't know if I'm going to use them, but I started looking at them. I said, "Oh, this would be great to do. This would be great to do." So
Well, this venue here, the youth group meeting, is a perfect place. Even if we've had it where other users have used something completely different. You know, they've not even a development tool. They've been using an application. I think one was an arts package, but they wanted the look and feel or a feature out of that package in their application, completely unrelated. They just like the UI of it, or they just like the feature of it. So what they would do, what they would do is take a couple of screenshots, come to the webinar, and say, right, this is the type of thing what we want to try and accomplish. Can it be done? And we were successful, and we knocked around an example, and so on and so forth. So don't be scared of seeing something. Grab a screenshot, fire it across to us, and we'll do it as part of the content here.
Okay.
So
yeah, I mean that's great. I'm on all the other webinars, so unfortunately I just started them probably a year ago, but now I'm pretty regular guy, so I'll be regular here too.
Okay, cool. Do you want me to walk you through some basics of the RegFreeCOM?
What's that?
Do you want me to walk you through a couple of the basics of RegFreeCOM, or is that working on your system?
Well, I did get it working, because I just copied the licenses over. It was pretty self-explanatory. So in my little test system, I've got the 4 or 5 things that I've tried already. Like I've got the calendar working. I've got, again, I just pieces of it just to make sure that the OCX was working, and like the skins, and there were a couple of others, and it registered, and again, I'm not even sure if I had them registered prior, but it seemed to work. I have other computers that I can try it on. So
well, let's just
go ahead.
I just want to make sure that you
Sure.
you have actually got the thing unregistered first. So say, for example, I'll just going to fire open here. User groups. Okay. Got a folder for today. And I'm going to copy in calendar, as good as any, because I know we've got some questions on calendar coming up, so we'll cover those on that. So there we go, calendar. Let's have a copy of that. Now I have some bash files set up. I'm going to make sure unregister 1531. Don't think it's actually registered. You say 1531?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to run that. So I know that 1531 will not be running in this. So I'm going to open up our example. User groups down to there.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to use 1531. Now we know it's not registered, so I'm hoping this will fail, because it definitely should do. The one thing which you do want to ensure is if I'm using 1531, let's just move that out of the way. I'm going to bring in the style files from that particular version. So in here, we'll have Office 2010 theme, so then theme files. So you go to your install of that version, you go to the samples and the styles, and you'll see the files there.
Right.
Copy those in to make sure that you're running the styles for the related version. That can cause an issue, mainly in the later versions, to be honest. So,
but
we're going to go with that. We're going to choose a very simple theme. Office 2010 blue. Yeah, 1531. Happy with that. Compile and run. And I don't want this to work because we've not registered the control.
Right.
Of course, what we're doing here is the same for all of the products, not just calendar. It's exactly the same approach for all of them. go to our calendar, and brilliant. That's good. It doesn't
Right.
work.
That did happen to me the
Yeah.
first time.
It's happened many times. That's good. So now we've got our style files in. We need. Let's go to the actual CodeJock file. Get the control. So we're looking for the calendar.
Right.
OCX. Oh no, hang on. Can't see for looking. Now we need that in the folder. So it will need to be present in the folder. And interestingly, what we also want to take, I'll just clean up so I can see. Right. Now, the application currently has a manifest. And if we open that manifest up, it's just a regular Clarion generated manifest. Okay. Got a dependency assembly of Microsoft and so on, but that's nothing to do with us. And that's regular. So I'm going to keep that there. Now we're going to go to our settings. Global extension. Don't worry, all this is recorded, so they'll be on. They'll go to the YouTube channel. Register. We want to use RegFreeCOM in the folder, in the current folder.
Yeah.
You would. Oh, sorry. As well as that, because we're using RegFreeCOM, you would want your license to be compiled in. So we're going to say,
right,
compile the license in. I'm just going to open up the license file off screen, so obviously I don't give my license away. So we go, basically we're going to compile the license in. That's going to give us a place to enter it. Come back to that in a second. In the binary folder of your CodeJock install, you'll also get the .license.
Right.
I'm just going to open that on the other screen. I will go to my license, I'll enter that, and pull it over there. And now I've just entered it. So my license is in there. And when it's the license, it's the entire third line. I'm just going to quickly write over mine so you can see roughly what it would look like.
Yeah, I actually, I opened up that license file and found it. Yep.
Yeah, so it would be the third line there. Okay,
Yep.
Obviously I'm not going to save that because I don't overwrite my license. So they're the main two things. You want to compile your license in, which you should always do, even if you weren't using RegFreeCOM. You should be using that. And use RegFreeCOM. One other, which could just catch you out, just make sure your system is using a manifest. This one is, because I just demonstrated it a second ago. But if it isn't, just go into Global Properties, Actions, and I think it's App Settings Manifest.
Okay.
And just make sure it's set to generate.
Okay.
Okay. If you've got it linked in, I would just unlink it just the first time to make sure that it's there. You should be actually okay, but I don't unlink it just so you can see it to start with. Okay. Now we do another compile, and we'll have another look at our folder. Okay. Another look at our folder. Now we've got two manifests. We look back at our calendar one, which of course we had open a second ago. We've got the original dependent assembly, but now the template has added a new section for you. And what it said is it needs to make use of the extreme calendar control, which is CodeJock. They call theirs extreme. They always have. So basically it's the extreme calendar control, the particular version number, 15310, and the 32-bit. So that's added that to your application manifest, and it's written you a brand new calendar manifest, extreme calendar, so on and so forth. We'll look at that, and that is where the magic happens from a RegFreeCOM point of view.
Okay.
So again, stamped with relevant versions, 15.3.1. Starting the application now. And obviously the control has to be present. So the four things from a shipping point of view you would need would be the control, or the controller, of course, if you've got multiple, e.g. calendar and command bars and report control, that type of thing. Your application itself and the 2 manifest files and the theme file if you've got them.
Okay.
So, but the bare essential would be calendar, the calendar control, your application, and those 2 manifest files. And if you're using more, expect to have more. So if you're using command bars, you'd also have extreme command bars. Using report control, you'd also have extreme report control. You only have one for your application, that would just have multiple sections in it, saying one for command bars, one for calendar, and so on and so forth.
So I'd have a dependent assembly for each one of the.
That's just we'll put well. Let's check that one worked. Make sure we're right.
Okay.
Let's go in, get our calendar. There's our calendar.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, and now when we know it's not registered because we ensured it wasn't, we run our little batch file a minute ago to make sure, and then we even tried running it and it proved it wasn't. So now in Windows, that's not registered, but when the application starts, RegFreeCOM works on the principle of basically keeping a virtual copy of the registry just for that application. Which means from a security point of view, you could run it as a guest user. You wouldn't even have to have an account on the machine. You could be a guest user because, well, you know what I mean, like a regular account, if you will. Because it starts the application, creates a virtual shadow copy of the registry, one which it can manipulate to its heart's content to make use of what it needs. But when the application shuts down, because it's the registry, virtual registry, is just destroyed.
Okay.
And Windows has never been modified.
Which is great. So like the installs where I do, let's say in a big gym or something, they have an IT department. The users are, they have basic permissions. Even though I'm running it across the network, it'll do that virtual registry, and so I won't have any issues with any of the workstations or the user permissions. Okay, great.
No. There's this JP, who remember years ago, he used RegFreeCOM with his DMC program, the data transfer program, which is a good utility actually, and he had it so you could run it off a USB pen drive. So you didn't install anything even to the machine. It would literally just go onto the USB, plug it in, and the program will start up, and that was all running RegFreeCOM.
That's great.
So it's definitely RegFreeCOM's been around since Windows XP. It's just we had to wait for it to be added. But fair play to Bob Z. He back at one of the previous DevCons, he did come round and grant us all one wish, if you will, from a supplier's point of view, and mine was RegFreeCOM, and we got it. So hey presto.
Wow, exciting. That's great.
So that same principle is what you would do for all of us. So if we was to this application, we'll add command bars. It's as good as any. So again, we want the command bars OCX. We will need that.
Yeah.
We know we've already got. I'd better just open a thing for the license. We know we've already have our manifest settings set correctly, so I'm just going to go to here. We've got our correct theme files in there, so I'm going to say, okay, I need command bars. I shall add that. I'm going to go with 15.3.1. I'm going to go with Office 2010. Blue is as good as any. Use RegFreeCOM. I'm going to grab the license, but of course I need to open up that file.
Sure.
Put it onto that session. There we go. So onto here. RegFreeCOM license compile in. Just pull that over there so I can
sure
do the magic. And basically, what shall I add it to? I'll add a command bar to the app frame, although I don't think there's particularly much on this app frame. But yes, we'll add a command bar to the app frame. So we can just see something in action, that's all. at the top in a ribbon type interface. There you go. Compile. We'll take a quick look at the changes to the manifest. We'll make sure it works, and then we'll have a quick look at the manifest changes.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a command bar. I haven't added any tabs to it, but there's my command bar running. That batch file I ran earlier to unregister the control would have run the entire suite, so that definitely wasn't registered before. I use these batch files all the time to unregister everything, so that when I'm calculating the RegFreeCOM settings for the template updates, I know there's only a small set done at each time. But yes, basically we've got that, and we've got our calendar still, so on and so forth. Yes, so all very good. Quick changes to that now then is, yes, we've got both our OCXs, which we would need, and we jump down to our, and we've got 3 manifests. One for the command bar. There's a command bar's personal RegFreeCOM settings. There's a calendar one. And then we look at our application, and now it's got 2 dependencies.
Okay.
First one and the second one. And that will just keep growing and growing, the more you add. So that's really RegFreeCOM in a nutshell. Trying to think if there's any caveats. There isn't. The one thing I would say, you mentioned in your application there, the skinning. Now, unfortunately, since they moved from Clarion 6, we got the new Clarion 7, and they had they had the reasons, but basically they started, I think it was to reduce some flicker. They did have quite a bit of flicker on their screens. So they started to apply a term called owner drawn to their generated controls. Owner drawn, basically from a control design level, stops any external application changing the properties of it, the color theme settings, and so on and so forth, which of course skinning is its job. It's supposed to take a window control and apply a theme to it, apply a skin to it, and the Microsoft Visual Style files, which are ultimately the skins. The skins are nothing more than cut down style files. Work on that principle. They take a control, change its properties, its attributes, and so on and so forth to skin it into a new look. Softvelocity started to apply the owner drawn in C7. And then C8 to some of the menu structures. And then in C9, they applied it to some of the controls. The sheet controls, interestingly, have always been owner drawn, even in C6. But that was all. Now, in C8 and C9, they started to do it to other controls. By C10, they've turned the owner drawn on for most of the controls. They've promised me at some stage they will make it backwards compatible. Time will tell, but you will see less and less controls being skinnable the further on you go with Clarion versions. So you can apply the skin framework, you can apply your skins, but all of a sudden you'll see some of the controls won't be skinned. That's not Kojak's fault. That's not my fault. They're being applied, but they can only apply, the rule is in Windows that you can only apply to things what haven't got owner drawn turned on, and Softvelocity has started stamping owner drawn onto a lot of stuff, unfortunately.
So with the later versions, is it kind of, did they get rid of the flicker, or?
They got rid of the flicker, yeah, but it came at a price where they took full control over it and stopped anything from touching their controls.
I got you. Now, how about Clarion 11? Did they improve anything there?
They haven't really changed it, really. It's just same as C10.
Okay.
It's a bit of a side project, a back project, if you will. But for all the controls that you've got in Clarion, so an entry, a spin, a list box, a sheet, all of them basically, checkbox, radials, Kojak do the exact equivalent. So you do have spins, I think they call them up-down controls, but it's a spin. You've got entries, you've got buttons, and so on and so forth. They do their own. So I'm starting to wrap the latest suite controls had some more in there. They had the flat edits, the push buttons, the tree controls. So I'm starting to support more and more of the CodeJock base, what I call basic screen controls. The principle being that I want to give you the ability to attach an extension template to a window, and it will go through, find all the Clarion ones, but replace them at runtime with the CodeJock equivalent. You'll still keep your code. We've already done it with some of the others. The date time picker, for example. You can take a Clarion date, Clarion entry with a date control, apply an extension, and it will go through the window, find all the controls what have got a date picture, and turn them into a CodeJock date time picker automatically. The good thing of that is, by doing that, and I'll start expanding it, the good thing is CodeJock controls will be skinnable. So all of a sudden we will have our skinning back, but all the embed code will carry on working in these same Clarion embed points. Your controls will still be there. It's just that I'll do an API call to change their parentage and replace their screen positions and so on with the CodeJock equivalent.
Now, all this loading up across the network, is there any significant delay?
No, I mean,
okay,
not particularly. Yes, of course you are initializing controls, so you're going to have a little overhead, but I wouldn't be worried about that personally. It's never really bitten me. No, we've got some dental software in hundreds of practices, and each practice, could be a little single user, and some could be 20, 30 terminals.
Right.
All coming across the network, and that's fine.
Okay, great. So actually, you answered a bunch of other questions I had.
Oh, very good. That's good.
Which is great. I do have one operational question. This all started when my conversion from C6 to C10 started. I lost my date picker. And I went on last week. I went on the Clarion Live with John got on. He showed me his, and some other guys send me some date pickers, and so I liked what John did with his. He had I think he had a date lookup, and then the calendar on the side, the date picker. If my terminology is wrong, I apologize. Now. So I did it on my date picker, okay, and it looks great, and the pop-up is working, but when I try to use the calendar on the right, maybe you could show me here. It asked me for a calendar control to drop the dates in, and I don't really have one on a date picker. I just have a field. So. Well, what do I do then?
One thing you might be missing there. So you're thinking, so you got a date picker. The date picker can stand alone, so it doesn't need to be attached. It will prompt by default to say link me to a calendar. So let me show you the controls I'm talking about. So let's go with a simple calendar.
Okay.
So we've got a calendar control, which you can navigate via keyboard, of course. Then we've added a date picker. And on the date picker, I have said, link it to the calendar, and here is a control that you're going to link to. So that's one particular option. The reason I wanted that linked is as I navigate through via keyboard, I want the date picker to be kept in sync so I can see the highlighted week or highlighted period. But equally, as I click around here, I want it to re-navigate my calendar.
Right.
So that's why I wanted them linked. But of course, you don't have to have them linked. You can go for a date picker only, say for like so. So I can choose different dates and so on. All you do there is just don't tick the link. So for example, on that date picker, any of these will do actually, just date picker. I got to add the date picker, I just unlink it. So no, it's not linked. It will still give me the embed points that I need to be able to do stuff. I've just got to have a date picker only.
So how do I link that to a specific field? Let's say global first date.
Well, here's the thing. You've got another thing which I think you're missing. Do you want it as a date lookup rather than a date picker like so? You just want it as so you can press a button. So you want a date, an entry, and you want to be able to just press a button to choose a date, that type of thing.
Well, actually both. The date picker that I have is basically just a from to date. and then I put your control next to it for the date lookup.
Okay.
All right, and I click it, and it sends a date, and then boom, it goes right into the field. That's great. But what John showed me was he actually did from the lookup on the right, like he had a 2-month thing on the right, and he could actually highlight, and it would do a from to range and fill in the fields.
Well, that is one of the other options you've got on the calendar. So on the calendar here, date picker, date lookups. So yeah, it's there. So date picker. Now, CodeJox don't supply this. This is our template doing this. But you can see I've added date lookups, and I've got a single entry. So I can call it in one mode. So I can say, okay, I want that date. And it brings me back. Or I can call it in another mode and say, I'm actually going to prompt the user for a range. So I want just like doing a report, a from and to range. So I can look up and I want that range. Oh, sorry, that range. And that will bring you back both dates automatically.
Ah, okay.
Or you want a range. So I can attend every Thursday and Wednesday. So I can go, Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday. That will bring me back a queue of all the selections.
Great.
With the minimum, maximum of the range. So to show you those, they are date lookup. Yeah, date lookups, and it's just a control template you add.
Yep.
So there we go. Date lookup it is. That is a date lookup. You add it, and then it'll ask for the options. So what are you asking for? A single date, and where do you want it to go into? With the usual reset the window, generate an event accepted, go and select that date after the lookup, usual things. And you can control the attributes of the window, what pops up. So the wording, the icon, the wording. So yeah, there's the title, the wording of the buttons, and the icon of the buttons, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Or you can call a lookup range. So if it's a lookup range, it will bring you back. Okay, same again, but 2 entries. What's the start and what's the end? And they're the screen controls you want to go and tie it to. And last but not least is if it's a range. And again, I could change all this here. It's just a simple, you just add it and then just choose your strategy. But I'm going to say here, it's a start, it's an end, and then it does gives you a tip. The date selections are stored in a queue called date selection queue.
Okay.
And that's really it. So you just drop that window control on drop the control on the window and choose the particular fields.
Okay, I'll work with that. Let me just quickly ask you, like on mine, when I just drop the control in, I just get 1 month. On your demo here, you're showing 2 months. What do I control that?
Do you use a date? Was it the date lookup you added? Like, say for example, let's get rid of this.
Hey, Andy.
And that one, yes.
I've got the example that he's talking about up on my screen if you want to look at it. Oh, yes,
far away. Can we bring it to you?
Yeah, I'll grab it.
Sorry, I stole your stuff, John.
I'm flattered, actually.
That's it.
Oh, that's it, right, because that's just a date picker then. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah. And what he's talking about is that, like, I could grab the 4th here and go like this, and then up here it updates the 2 dates.
Yep, that's no problem.
Exactly.
Yep, we can do that.
So that's what he was talking about.
Do you want to knock an example together of that? In fact, I think the example app does have that in. Not in that style, but essentially the same functionality.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we can do that. Okay, let's just jump back to me, and I'll show you where we are on the... Hang on a second. Presenter. Okay, so yeah, let's skip that then, and we'll go back to the date picker. Now, obviously, this will paint itself to whatever particular size. Let's knock that screen around a little. Simple date picker. So the control, it will fit in as many months. So if I draw it that way, I might get 3 or 4 months horizontally. So first of all, let's just show you that. John's was vertical. So
Right.
if I go to just simple date picker, there you go. I've got 5 actually. But you can get to see, the more it can fit, the better the resize. Yeah, so now we've got 6. Take it down, got 3. So we don't control that. The more it can fit in, because it's also, you've got to think you might use different styles, which will be different fonts and so on. So it will fit in the most it can, given its current setup, if you will. Now, one thing you have got is there's different dates it can return back to you. But if you have a look here now, if I select the 9th to the 14th, they're filling in there for you automatically. Okay? But I could do, the reason, remember this is a test screen, a debug screen, if you will. It's giving you a few things, but I could say, okay, there's the 10th, and it's filled in. I've selected the 10th. It's doing that. Quickly show you. The embed point, new date, and it gets a parameter of start date, start range, end range. So basically, we're looking at that, the overall date, the range, sorry.
Okay.
Yep. So all you would do is something very similar. Go to that embed point and change your screen controls to whatever they need to be, really.
Right, my variables.
Yeah. But as I say, you also got the little lookup. What you can also do, because the user might say, okay, I can make it on the 9th of July or the 10th of August and the 17th. So now, yes, my range is the 9th to the 17th. But I've not got all of it highlighted. I've got it in 3 sections. That's if that's turned on. You might not. You want your users to have that turned on. That's all configurable. If that is the case, I've got 3 blocks selected. 1 block, 2 block, 3 block. So in here, you can go and get it. So you can say, okay, get me the date for block 1. It's the 9th. For block 2, it's the 10th. And for block 3, it's the 17th. And there's a method call to say how many blocks are there. So you can, you don't have to guess. So if I said 4, it'd be nothing. But you don't have to work like that. There is a method call to say how many actual highlighted blocks are there. And it will return you 3. So you say, okay, loop 1 to 3.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I think I've monopolized your time enough.
No problem. I mean, there's a calendar one coming up, which you probably want to take note of, really. So I'm going to bring, as well as yourself, I'm going to bring Steve in. So I'll leave the microphone open because it's calendar related. Well, it's all work related. And Steve's got one regarding loading. So we're going to stick in this calendar example. The other thing I was just going to say is, you notice we're doing loads of things here, and I could put the report control in. I would get the example apps, latest ones, you set them to use 15.3.1, which is your older version, granted, and do you get the functions? Because a lot of the functions what are in there have been in there for a long time. Some of the templates didn't support them originally, but that was my misgiving, not my lacking, if you will, not the code, not CodeJock controls. They do add functions over time, of course, so you won't necessarily get everything, but there'll be plenty in there, which now you've got the latest templates, you will get more and more out of. So that track bar control we mentioned earlier, that was still in there in 15.3.1.
Okay.
So I'd stick with 15.3.1, open the examples, play about, see what you like, what you don't like, so on and so forth, and then if it's something missing, drop me a quick email and I can confirm what CodeJock version it was added in, and it might be then at that point you have to upgrade your CodeJock.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, let's open Steve as well. But like I say, you listen in, and I'll keep the mic open. So if you just want to, cover that again, Andy, because we're going to talk about we've covered it a couple of times, but we're going to quickly talk about the calendar and efficiently loading the data into it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Andy. How are you doing?
Yes, good. You?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good.
So you remember what we spoke about, or
Yeah, it was about the efficiency of loading the calendar, correct?
yeah, I've adapted your events demo. It's for a garage actually, so I don't have at the top of your events demo. You have dates and stuff. I've got staff.
Oh, okay. So you got like
and then I've got
something like this for your staff.
That's it. Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
That's exactly it.
Yep. Okay. So quickly cover loading 101. We're getting quite a bit of feedback actually on your mic, Steve. I think we're getting quite a bit of feedback on your microphone.
How's it now?
That's better. Yeah. Okay. So simple calendar. Sticking with the generated embed points. Let's actually we'll cover all of them under the class, of course. And there's a core set of embed points which you will need. Quickly. Okay. What you've got is if it needs file IO, then the calendar will call these methods starting file. Historically, I always said I wouldn't do people's data IO for them because no developers are the same. I don't want to really go imposing tables on you to say you must have a table like this with these keys and this index and this file driver, because I don't do that. So I'll give you all the embed points and you can tie it to whatever data source you happen to be using. Could be Microsoft Access, could be SQL, could be CSV. Doesn't really matter.
It is MS SQL.
Yep. So I am thinking actually in a future version I might automate some of this, prompt you for your still keeping your table and your dictionary design under your control, because I don't like to impose standards on people and so on. So but it'll just prompt what table is it and what fields and what key do you have. So I'll prompt you for it and it'll just write the code. But this is a rough and ready. This is I'll walk you through the basics. So if the system needed to, let's say you double clicked on, and we'll actually do it. We'll go into a calendar and we'll double click here. I've typed something in and I'm going to add that. So that needs to insert a record. Oh, sorry, no, bad example. No, bad example. Because I've just done it by the thing. Okay, I need to move that. So now I need to synchronize something from the calendar back to the file. So that's it there. I'm going to bring it down. Oh, sorry. No, I'm going to move it down to 11 o'clock till 12 o'clock. So I need to go and update the date table. So as I go out and go back in, them changes are live changed. So we all know we would have to go and fetch a record, change its values, and update the record. Kind of what we normally do in a program. It's exactly the same. So it's going to go and select the record. So it's going to do a fetch. So it's going to call a method called file fetch record. It will pass two IDs to it. The ID of the event within the calendar and the record ID. Now, just again, calendar 101, but it's good to have this understanding so you can really get the most out of the calendar. You can see here that's got an ID of 835 and that's got an 833. Okay, yeah. So if I was to close that and go back in again, it's still okay. That's only because I'm clearing some stuff. Basically, it's nothing more than an internal ID for its own memory driver for the calendar control. If you were to ever call any methods to go and get attributes out of any of these, you would need to pass it the calendar's ID of that event, which is fine, but that means absolutely nothing to us. Because in our system, we might be using a GUID, we might be using a different record ID, could be using anything. So that ID means nothing to us from our table point of view, but it does to the calendar. But from our data IO, we need our record ID. We need to be able to get back to it. So what we do is the calendar, when you load it, and I'll show you the loading in a second, we load the data and we stamp a record ID in the actual event itself. So now that event in memory in the calendar's memory has got its own internal ID and it's got our own record ID, meaning that we can talk to it in both ways, both from the calendar's point of view and from our file point of view. So anything what happens on the calendar, if it needs to fetch a record, delete or insert or whatever, it will pass you two parameters, the internal calendar ID and the record ID that you loaded it with in the first place, so that you can get it back. So we're going to do a fetch. So we're going to fetch, we've got our record ID, and we're literally going to do a fetch. Now this is a TPS, it's a flat access, so it's literally just clear it, set the ID to the record what's been passed in, and attempt to fetch it. And if you can't, return a false. Nice and simple. The main ones are the files. Remember, we would fetch it. We would then have to synchronize from the calendar back to the file. So we've got two synchronize methods. One calendar to file and one file to calendar. We're going calendar to file. So you can see here, it's just going to say, okay. And this is where this internal ID would come in. We're going to say the start date of our record buffer, our start date equals the event start date for that. The end date is the start date and time, the end date and end time, and whether it's an all-day event. So basically, we're just going getting the attributes from a particular event, which we've just been passed in, and we're putting them into, just as you would in a normal program, going setting the variables. Last but not least is the fetch the file, because it's a file IO. It's a file update record, and that is nothing more than a straightforward try update, and if it fails, return false.
Yeah.
The only extra ones it would pass through, I don't know what people use for their record locking point of view, but various people use different record locking ideas, implementations, and so on. I personally, I have it record locking. I have a table with basically the currently logged in user, because most of the systems always have a user ID. I have a logged in user, the machine. So in a global variable, during initialization, I stamp what the machine name is, like a terminal, if you will. So I've got the user ID, potentially their name, their terminal, and then the table and the record, and that becomes, and especially the table and the record. The table and the record is a unique key. So if I want to go and lock a record, I go and say what table and what record ID is it. It could be a GUID, it could be anything, but it's a unique identity of that record, and then try insert that into my locking table. If it can insert it, great. That means I've got it. Nobody else has got it because it's unique and it's not in there. So I've now got it locked. And then when I want to unlock it, I take it back out. Anybody else who wants to
key that table, yeah.
Sorry?
Key that table, yeah.
Yeah. So the key is the table ID and the record ID, and a combination of them two is enough to give you your uniqueness.
Okay.
So, and the reason I have which user and terminal and so on and so forth is if it attempts to insert and it can insert, great, then it's locked. If it can't insert because you get a duplicate, then that means somebody else has got it locked. So I go and find it, and then I can put a nice message on the screen with a countdown timer where I automatically try and carry on doing the insert, just in case they've got it locked just for a second. But I can put a message on the screen saying, this record, the selected record, is locked by, and we'll say, is locked by Andy on development 01. And then I just have a progress bar, and it keeps attempting to insert every second for 30 seconds. If at the end of it just says, sorry, I can't lock this record. If the other user, in the meantime, comes out and, so as they come out, that record is removed, then I can insert and hey presto, I close the window. I've now got it locked. So the reason I mention record locking is, in the scenario I've just covered, I've moved an event, so I've moved it from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock or whatever. The actual true order would be fetch the record to make sure, one, I can get it. Then it would actually go through file lock record, again, with the ID, but it's just a record ID. Doesn't need the calendar because the calendar hasn't a clue about record locking. So it just says attempt to lock, they expect to return true or false. Then it would do your synchronize sync, which we just covered down here. Then it would unlock, file update, so it would update the record, then it would pass through unlock record. So the steps are actually moving that here. So let's just see it in action. Me moving that there is actually done. Select fetch record, lock record, or file fetch record, file lock record, synchronize calendar to file, file update record, file unlock record.
Okay.
But it's not exactly slow, because so that covers you even for the record locking. And the other fetches, the other files are very similar. Prime record, delete record, delete record. They're not try delete or relate delete. They're all very simple. The last but not least, then, and it's the important one from a loading point of view, is here. When the calendar needs fresh data, and this will have changed, Frank, this would have changed from the early versions that you would have seen a long time ago. When the calendar needs data, it will call file load records, and it will pass it a couple of parameters: a start date, an end date, and a force. Do you want to force a reload? So, for example, if I go into here and I've got the 19th to the 23rd loaded, okay? So we can see here active is 19th to the 23rd. These are just feedback. You won't have these on your screen designs. These are just for the demo purposes. So the load is going to be called with 19th to the 23rd. So that's great. It's loaded 19th to the 23rd, got the data in there. As I'm navigating between these days here, it's not going to go and reload, because it will call it, because it's a new selection, it's a new date what's been selected, so it will call file load records. But the thing is, it wouldn't get to your embed point, because it would know that it's already got 19th to 23rd loaded. So what does it need to go and reload? You're looking at the data, so it won't go and reload automatically. If I was then via the keyboard or via the mouse on the date picker to go and change that, and I'll go to the right, so I'd expect it to go 20th to the 24th. That would then go and call file load records, as it normally would do. But this time, the last time it did it, because it keeps the historical copy, it was the 19th to the 23rd. This time it's the 20th to the 24th. This would actually then go and trigger a reload, because it wants a different data criteria than you've got there. Okay, so the last parameter you could see was a force. Now, what that will do is, including the name, it will force a reload. So I could call file load records with the two dates and a force, and it would force it, even if you haven't changed. It might be something on your network has changed on a network system, so someone else on the has inserted a new event or whatever. So that would call it, but you wouldn't necessarily call load records. You've got one called refresh contents, and you pass it a true or false. And if you said calendar, the calendar class calendar dot refresh contents true, what that would do is it would call the file load records with the last dates it knew it was called with. So because it keeps stores copies automatically, it would automatically pass the last date to it, but it would pass the force as a true on the end, forcing it to actually go and reload that content.
Okay. Also, when
there's one other thing on that actually. Sorry. So we can see we've got a date picker here, and if we didn't have a date picker, then the only possible range we could look at here is the 20th to the 24th, or if I put it in week view mode, just in day mode, then let's totally ignore the date picker. The most I could look at here is the 22nd. I'm in day mode, and I'm looking at the 22nd or the 21st, and so on. If I'm in week mode and I put it in, let's put it in working week mode, then I'm looking at the 19th to the 23rd. So these ranges, if you only have the calendar, you would only ever get those dates passed to you. We've got a date picker. you've potentially got two date ranges, what could be called, what could be used. One is the active range, so you can see here that I've got the 19th of the November to the 23rd, which I have 19th to the 23rd highlighted. And I happen to have a thing, the setting set to bold if you've got activity on those dates. If you're not really bothered because it's such a busy calendar, you're always going to have activity. Yeah? Then I would use that range. But if you wanted it to say, let's go down to here, and I'll add one on the 13th, ABC. Okay, so now I can see I've got some activity on that range, and I've got some activity on the 13th as well. So if you did want them to bold when there's activity, you'd have to use the outer range, which technically is the very top one here. So we can see it's, what's that, November? So that's going to be the 29th of October, all the way down to the 10th of February 2019, because that is the ultimate, that's the overall range you can look at. So that date picker there is looking at 3 months, technically 3.5 months or 3 and a bit months. You can control which dates get passed to the calendar via the date picker. So you've added your date picker and you've linked it to the calendar, and then you say, okay, the load parameters. You want the currently selected dates, or do you want the visible date range? So one is the outer. So the difference on that is currently selected is 19th to 23rd. Visible range is the 29th of October through to the 10th of February, and so on. So of course, if you're using the visible range, there's more loading to do because you are potentially wanting to highlight stuff on different months and different days. If you don't have the bold thing turned on, the bold setting turned on, and in a busy appointment system, I kind of turn it off because every day's got loads of content. So what's the point of having it bold? Everything's bold, so kind of turn it off. If that's the case, definitely use the selected because it's nice and small and nice and efficient.
Okay, and will that help me with because the initial load of my application takes about 5 minutes to load. I think it's loading all the events in the past, and I don't need those.
No, that's really wrong then. No, because you've got your file load. So we've got our dates. We've got a start and an end date. So we look at our load routine. We clear everything out what's there now. So we delete all the events. I have an events table. It could be a SQL query. It could be anything. Again, it's your database, your data source. But yeah. I'm going to say, okay, very first thing I'm going to do here is say, okay, I'm going to, and there is another scenario which I'll cover in a second, but we're going to say, got a key, which is start date, start time. So I'm going to go, okay, set to the start date with 0 time, so midnight of that day. Set key, so jump to that. I'm going to loop through the table, and I'm going to loop while we haven't got an error, and also make sure that the start date hasn't gone past the end of my criteria, my loading criteria, because that's going to take me to the nearest it can do to the start of the criteria. And if I go past the end, then break, because I don't need the rest of the information. The user isn't looking at it, so what's the point in loading it?
Yeah.
Yep. So now you've got that. Ignore that, but that's a clue to the other scenario. And the again, more for Frank's knowledge here. Historically, you would do insert event, pass it certain parameters, and then you will go calling the changing properties of an event, like set busy status and set meeting and so on and so forth. Now there's a group structure. It's been around for a while actually. There's a group structure. Definitely use this method. Prime up the group structure with all the attributes that you need and call is an insert event from group with a false, so it doesn't repaint the calendar after that. That will load the event and all of the attributes, so the busy status, the meeting, icons, all the things, all in one go. So it's less callbacks, which means your loading is a lot faster. So we do that, we insert events, so basically we delete all events, we set our record handling to the nearest event we can from our start date, and we make sure we don't go past the end date. We prime up the group. We insert event from group with a false, so we don't repopulate the calendar per record. And then at the end, after we've done our loading, we then call populate and redraw, which says, okay, all the records are in the calendar now. Now go off and populate it and redraw it onto the screen. And hey presto, that's your fastest way of loading.
All right.
The only side thing of that, sorry, not side, the other scenario would be if you had recurring events. Now remember, it's a good one today, this. So recurring events is slightly different because when you create a recurring event, again, you can have your own update form. I'm not saying use this. This is just a rough and ready one. But you give it a recurring pattern. So I could say, I want this to recur every day. Every day. Only on weekdays. I don't want weekends, but no end date. Okay. No, actually, I'm going to make it end after 2 occurrences just to show. So this is 2 occur. Give it that colour so it stands out. 10 o'clock till 10:30. Okay, there we are. 2 occur. Okay, now here's a scenario. I'm going to do the same again. Occur forever. And it's going to start back in the year 2000. Okay, it's going to recur every day, only weekdays, and it's never going to end. So, okay, there it is. And I can go back. I could go back to August, and it's going to be there. And I could go back to June, and it's there. We can go back to whenever we want. It's always going to be there because we started it in 2000. So all of a sudden, our range won't cut it because our start date of that occurrence, that recurring event, only has one record in your database, and that is start on the 1st of the 1st, 2000, and run forevermore. So you can't just load for this range here because you wouldn't pick it up. So you do need to do that slightly different. So if I show you that recurring, the way I do it anyway, is a couple of keys on our table. So down to our file load records again, because that's where it is. I would have load my non-recurring events. Okay, so you can see here, it's exactly what we had before. Jump to the key, start, only go to the end, and set that key start date. Start date, key. Sorry, start date. And we just go through, and that will get us through. So what we've done is we've got our delete, and at the end, we're going to do our populate. But in between, we're going to load our non-recurring via the date range. Perfect. Then we're going to load our recurring. So on this, I have a different key to go through the table, and I say the recurring type is 1. Forget what that is, to be honest, but basically it's a key, which is the first part of the key is a recurring type. I think it's just a true or false, actually. And basically, so it's a recurring event, no start date, no start time. I'm going to go through. Now, this could actually be optimized a bit. So I'm going to go through here, and it's going to say, okay, this is actually multi-schedule as well, so kind of ignore that. But it's the same principle. You would load through. You could actually say, if the start, to optimize that a little more, you could say if the start date, something along the lines of if the start date is greater than param end date, then cycle. Because if it's a recurring record, but it doesn't even need to start yet, it's something that you are planning for the future, then you could miss that record out. No point in loading it into the calendar. You're not looking at that range. So that should really have that in there, to be honest, which would be fully optimized.
Okay.
I suppose another one would be if the event recur. No, you see, in this, it doesn't have it. Oh, no, it wouldn't have it. You haven't got a recurring end date. Actually, you do. Yeah, in your data design, store the recurring end date as a particular field, and you could say something like, if the recurring end date is less than the param start date, then again, cycle, because it was one which was running back in the year 2000, but it only ran for 2 years. Maybe it was a Game of Thrones fan.
Sorry, somebody called my phone.
Someone's a Game of Thrones fan. I can't fault you.
Absolutely.
But basically, that's the only difference with the recurring. If they've already recurred and they have a fixed end date, then and it's before your range of loading, brilliant, you can miss it. If it's not due to even start yet, so it's past the end date, great, you can miss it. Failing that, you're going to have to load it, and it might be that it's still not actually valid. For example, we could have our calendar. Oh, so it's recurring, weren't it? We could have it here, and we'll put one in, and it's a occur test free. So, for example, so it's every day. No. A more obscure one. It's every month, but it's a particular occurrence. So I want it to be the fifth. Oh no, we haven't got a fifth, fourth. The fourth weekday of every other month, and I'm going to make it occur 50 times. So that's going to be a little awkward to work out your end date, because you're going to have to have a look at what the fourth weekday is, and so on and so forth, for every other month to try and calculate it. So it's just not worth the hassle. You might as well just load that into your calendar. You're not going to have too many of that type of record, so just load it into the calendar. And if it doesn't show up, so you've loaded an extra record, and it's taken up a bit of memory, it's not the end of the world. For the offset of the speed of loading and making sure you get all the data in there, I think it's a fair trade-off.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be taking 5 minutes. Even in the busy dental software, you could be running an appointment book for various staff members, and your appointments could be, they could be 5-10 minute appointments, for scale and polishers and stuff like that, and just checkups, and you could be talking, hundreds, literally a few hundred per day you're looking at, and you're looking at maybe a week range or a couple of week range. And so if you're looking at a lot, and then you put that over 10 years, 15 years history in the appointment table, the loading was still only just a few seconds, and I'm talking like 2 or 3 seconds. So you should be nowhere near the 5-10 second mark, let alone minutes.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, looking at your calendar there, where it starts at November, when you load your screen, it doesn't look back in October or August or anything like that.
No. The load, coming to this, I mean, the recurring one, let's go back to our normal, but it's exactly the same. But when it loads up, the file load records isn't called until it's got some meaningful dates.
I wonder why mine is taking so long.
Debug the parameters out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a feeling it's something to do with, because I'm using a staff file and then an other file for my events.
Again, you should still be fine.
Yeah, okay. I'll dig a bit deeper.
Try that. Give it a run out. No joy. Well, as long as you've got no private data and you've got some test data which you don't mind showing, then we'll switch to your screen next week, and we'll debug it there and then, and make sure it is loading correctly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks, Andy.
No problem. Okay. Okay, I think we've got time for we've got 2 more questions. One is Jesper, and it's really related to the report control and the loading. Yes, but you will get that update this week. It didn't go in the build last week. What he's referring to is in the report control, you can rearrange the columns, and you can also, when getting the data into the report control, there's an actual a knack where you can, instead of adding a row and then setting the data for each particular column one at a time, you can prime up a group structure and pass it to the add row method, so it would add the row and take the values immediately from that group structure. But he found a bug where the columns are defined column 1, column 2, column 1 to column 10. The group structure reflects column 1 to column 10, so it works, but then the user has saved and restored the positions of the columns. So all of a sudden, column 2 is not column 2. Column 2 is column 8, and column 8 is column 9, and basically they've all been moved around, and the data was getting out of sync. So basically, we've done a workaround, and I'll make sure he gets that update this week. Should have had it a couple of weeks ago, actually. But basically, yeah, we'll get that update out. Sorry, I'll just read another question from Steve just posted. So yes, basically, yes, but you will get the update 100%, no problem. Steve, have you got your microphone open?
Just opening it now, sorry. Yeah, I forgot to ask, is there any way of omitting holidays from the calendar? I obviously think I must have to have a queue of something, of holidays that the company, obviously there's general holidays that everyone has, Christmas Day and stuff like that. Is there a way of omitting those from the calendar?
Do you mean like omitting that day?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you have bank holidays and you have Christmas Day, you have Christmas Eve, New Year's Day.
You're going to
struggle. They can be taken if they can be shown that they can't be picked. If you understand.
The short answer is no. Okay,
yeah,
but
I was thinking I'd have to do a queue or something.
Well, the way I've done it now, I'm working on a particular solution. I've done this a couple of times already, but they are in customer solutions, so I can't go showing that work because it's not mine to show. But I'm also doing that exact same functionality in one of my projects that I can gladly show. So I might even have that next week for you, but it's going to be tackled by using cell colors. So basically your calendar can have cell colors. There you go. So you can see here, I've got my appointments. I want to keep my appointments, but I can also have these colors here. Now, that is nothing. Me clicking here is exactly the same as me clicking there. It's just I want to highlight. Now, I don't just use that for holidays. I use it for staff rotas. So, say, for example, in a dental practice, you might have the first 30 minutes of the day available if somebody wants to book it, but you do kind of usually colour it maybe in a pink or a red to identify, and then of course the colours are customizable, but you would identify it to say, try and keep this for walk-ins. You've just opened and somebody will have chipped a tooth overnight, so they want to come in. You want emergency walk-ins. So if you're going to book people in next week and the week after, try and do it after the 9:30 slot. So keep 9 to 9:30 for walk-ins. But of course, if it's also being a little quiet, then fine, you don't want that to just be dead time, so then book them in. We tackle that via the colorings. But as I create a queue, I put my colorings and so on into a queue, and then I load from that queue. And then if somebody double clicks where this is, I go see if that's in the queue. And if it is, I will tell them this is reserved for thingy, or maybe it's a lunch break, and it's a case of this is a lunch break. You can't book in this slot, and I just reject the actual insert.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I'll cover that. But like I say, I've done it. That kind of functionality I don't mind talking about, even though I've done it for a couple of people, because it's an appointment system. Everyone's going to need stuff like that. So you'd be hard pressed to copyright that kind of idea. But I can't go show in their system. But I'll gladly show you my implementation of it, and it'll be done like, as I say, with the different colorings, not just for booking time on and off for holidays and so on and so forth. But for rotas, so it's a case of 1 week I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Next week, for 2 weeks, 2 consecutive weeks, I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then the third week, I only work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then you're back to the first week, back to the start of the rota, and then so on and so forth. So you can even do people's scheduling of time like so, but it's done via colourings. What you'd be hard pushed is to start missing days out. The calendar doesn't support. You can't hide an individual day.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to make them selectable.
So yeah, but you can do that definitely. I do that, and I even have it so they can say you can book into this time, but you can only book a certain type of thing into this time. That functionality you can have to whatever you want it to be.
Okay, great. All right.
Yeah,
See
no
you
problem.
next.
Okay, no problem. Okay, and then last but not least is Conchi. Conchi had a quick question, so I should be very patient. So, Conchi, your microphone's open. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening. A short question.
Okay.
How can I into the embeds make a calendar refresh when I click double at the event and make the update window open? I am finished and make close, and I must refresh the content of the calendar automatically.
No problem. Okay.
With position.
Okay, so make sure I've got that right. So I'm going to open this table. I think I understand what you want. Let's have that there. Go back. Okay, so I'm going to book. Let's get rid of that appointment.
Yes.
So if I book an appointment, we want that to show, but we also want the whole calendar to refresh just in case somebody else has inserted an appointment. No? Yeah?
No. My appointment make not automatically refresh. When I close
refresh.
I close the update.
Okay. Do you use on the calendar template?
Yes.
Do you use the update procedure?
Yes. The full procedure.
Yeah. So you declare the procedure. So on yours, if you double click and then
open,
and then okay, does yours show? Does yours not show?
No, I can you show. I make in the update other
appointments. No problem. Yeah, that's no problem. Okay, so what we can do. So you have new event. Yes. Okay. So very late in that, we have a look.
Okay.
Hang on, that's not the calendar I want. I wanted the simple one because you don't need that embed code. Okay, so new. We want new event. Okay.
Yes.
We want to do CalendarPro dot refresh contents.
Okay.
With true.
Okay.
Okay. Now I do that quite late. So that should make it look like so. So we can see here it's going to go and do some code, and then we want to refresh.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to run this. I shall delete that and delete that. Insert that, and of course it still works. Now I'm going to actually make it easier for me. There you go. Okay, I'm going to insert one here. B, okay. But in the TPS, just to show the refresh. I'm going to quickly add a new record. So it's going to be start time 38. I'm not sure what time that will be. Oops, that might. Yeah.
I make from one event, I divide in two, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yes.
5
That's no problem.
events.
Yep.
No?
That's okay.
And make a new event.
So
Copy.
now I press B. So there we've got A. I've got B, but I've just also added C. Now we could do that in the form, but I've just done it as a test. So I press OK there. There's B, but now C is loaded as well.
Mm.
So that's all you need, just one line. Refresh contents, true.
Yes. At the new events.
Yes, if it's only on the insert. Yes.
New events, I have.
If you do it on a, do you create extra records when you update events?
Yes.
Okay, then you'll need that, but you will need it on the file update record.
The file update. Okay.
Yeah. In there, again, late.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at the code, you can see it will go, yeah, I would do it there.
Mm-hmm. File update and new event.
Yeah, or maybe if not that one, maybe not that one, maybe not that one. You could do event accepted. There, that one.
Okay.
Which is after it's called the form. So it, as I mentioned earlier, it would lock the record, fetch the record, call the form, synchronize from the file to the calendar, unlock the record, and then you will go and refresh.
Okay. Okay. I tested. Yes.
Okay, you should be good.
I have all the embeds make, but I don't know.
No, that one. Okay, well, I think hopefully it's been a good webinar for everybody.
Thank you.
And Steve's just asked, what is the best way to refresh it if another workstation is added? And again, it's that refresh contents. Refresh contents equals true. You triggering, detecting, it'd be really up to yourself. NetTalk has a facility in there which basically does nothing more than a socket ping, telling it to go and refresh a particular table and so on, sends a packet of data. If you've got NetTalk, it's worth just adding that. If you haven't got NetTalk, you can still implement something similar yourself. Or you could use our Chilkat wrapper, of course, with a socket. Hint, hint. But basically, yes, you would have to notify other workstations that it needs to refresh. Very crude. You could leave a refresh marker lying around. It is a bit crude, that, to be fair, but that would do it. Okay, we're over time, but hopefully it's been a good one. I've enjoyed it. We've answered lots of details. Don't forget the new Chilkat update is out, so you can download that, and the report control update will be imminent. So, okay, until next week, I shall see you all then. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.